Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we will discuss queer approach together with Mr. Figueroa and Miss Buday. I know some of you already know what queer is, but today we will discover and define what is queer approach. The term queer has a complex history, originally used as a derogatory slur against LGBTQ individuals. However, during the late 20th century, LGBTQ activists reclaimed the word, transforming it into a powerful symbol of resistance and self-affirmation. Today, queer often serves as an umbrella term encompassing a wide range of sexual and gender identities that fall outside of traditional norms. It includes lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, non-binary, asexual, and pansexual. The use of queer emphasizes the shared experiences and struggles of LGBTQ individuals, promoting inclusivity and solidarity within the community. So while queer often is used as an umbrella term, it's important to recognize that it's not always interchangeable. With LGBTQ is a more specific acronym encompassing gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, and other gender identities. It's crucial to use respectful language when discussing LGBTQ identities, as some individuals may prefer to use more specific terms or may not identify with the term queer at all. It is important to always ask an individual how they prefer to be identified. Queer theory, a term coined by Teresa de Lauretis in 1991, has significantly influenced literary criticism by providing framework to interpret and critique the representation of LGBTQ identities and themes in literature. This approach often challenges heteronormative perspectives and binary categorizations of gender and sexuality that have historical dominated in literary analysis. By embracing the complexities and nuances of diverse sexual and gender identities, queer theory invites readers to engage with text and in a more inclusive and intersectional manner, acknowledging the multiplicity of human experiences. The application of queer theoretical principles to literary texts involves a deep exploration of the lived experiences of LGBTQ individuals who are portrayed within the narrative. By examining how the characters, relationships, and themes are constructed within the text, using a queer approach, seek to uncover hidden power dynamics, normative structures, and illuminate marginalized voice. This critical lens allow for a more nuanced understanding of representation and enabling readers to appreciate the diversity of identities and experiences that exist beyond traditional societal norms. Through the queer approach and literary criticism, it aimed to disrupt conventional interpretation, challenge normative assumptions about gender and sexuality. By centering the LGBTQ perspectives and experiences, This approach not only enriches literary analysis but also contributes to broader conversations in social justice, equality, and inclusivity. Implications of queer theory. By analyzing literature and social structures through a queer perspective has profound implications that go beyond questioning traditional notions of sexuality. So while queer theory is often associated with challenging heteronormative views of gender and sexuality, its impact extends to broader discussions about identity and power dynamics. So, by viewing identities as fluid and intersectional, queer theory describes the fixed categories on which societal structure are built. So, by opening up possibilities for reimagining identity in more inclusive and complex ways. So, this approach does not seek to completely dismantle categories of identity, but rather to deconstruct and challenge their boundaries, allowing for a more understanding of how individuals navigate various social identities. So, the interdisciplinary nature of queer theory is highlighted by its recognition that sexuality is intertwined with other aspects of identity and social status. By adopting an intersectional approach, queer theory acknowledge the interconnectedness of sexuality with race, class, gender, and other social factors. So these perspectives not only enriches the analysis of literature and cultural representations, but also offers a transformative lens through which to examine power dynamics and social hierarchies. So, by emphasizing the interplay between sexuality and other um, um, identity categories, queer theory encourage readers to explore how different identity intersect the shape of individual experiences, paving the way for new insights and perspectives on the complexities of human existence.
Dear by Donica Kelly. So this is the poem that we are going to analyze using the queer theoretical lens. So it goes like this. I am not a land or timber, nor are you, ocean or celestial body, but rather we are the small animals we have always been. The land and the sea know each other at the threshold where they meet as we know something of one another, having shown at different times some bit of flesh, some feeling. We call the showing knowing instead of practice. We seem to say at different times a feeling comes. What is the metaphor for two animals sharing the same space? Marriage? We share a practice. You and I, a series of postures. Here is I, how I become a tree, and you, a body in space. In the context of this poem, queer theory can be applied to examine the fluidity of identity and the complexities of relationships and also the ways in which individuals navigate societal expectations. Here are some key aspects of the poem that can be analyzed through a queer theoretical lens. In stanza 1, rejecting traditional tropes. So, in stanza 1, I am not land or timber, nor are you, ocean or celestial body. Rather, we are the small animals we have always been. So, this stanza immediately sets the stage for a departure from traditional romantic tropes. The speaker rejects the grand sweeping metaphors of land and ocean, often used to represent love and connection. These metaphors are often associated with heteronormative notions of masculinity and femininity, with one partner representing the earth and the other is the sky. So, by rejecting these metaphors, the speaker establishes a space for a more nuanced and fluid understanding of their relationship. Instead, they identify with small animals, suggesting a sense of vulnerability and intimacy. This choice resonates with queer theory's focus on challenging the dominant narrative of masculinity and embracing a more fluid and nuanced understanding of identity. So, in stanza 2, the threshold of knowing. So, the land and the sea know each other at the threshold where they meet. As we know, something of one another, having shown. At different times, some bit of flesh, some feeling. This stanza introduces the concept of knowing as a process of gradual revelation. The land and the sea know each other at the threshold where they meet, suggesting a shared understanding that emerges through mutual exposure. The knowing is not a fixed state but rather a continuous process of showing and feeling. The speaker uses the phrase some bit of flesh to represent the vulnerability inherent in intimacy. This emphasizes the physicality of love and the importance of bodily experience in building connection. So, next is the stanza 3, the practice of intimacy. We call the showing knowing of instead of practice. We seem to say at different times a feeling comes. So this stanza highlights the difference between showing and knowing. In the context of intimacy, the speaker suggests that we often mistake the act of showing for knowing, implying that true intimacy is not about complete understanding, but rather a continuous process of vulnerability and shared experience. The phrase a feeling comes further emphasizes the unpredictable and fluid nature of love. Next is stanza 4, the unfinished metaphor. So, what is the metaphor for two animals sharing the same space? Marriage? We share a practice, you and I, a series of postures. So, this stanza directly addresses the challenge of finding a suitable metaphor for the relationship. The speaker questions a traditional metaphor of marriage and instead proposes practice as a more accurate representation. The practice is not about achieving a fixed state of knowing, but rather about engaging in a series of postures. The shape that shape that shapes the relationship over time. So in stanza 5, transformation and unresolved. So ends here is how I become a tree, and you a body in space. This stanza ends the poem on a powerful note of transformation, but the metaphor remains unfinished. The speaker describes how they become a tree and their partner a body or a body in space, leaving the reader to contemplate the nature of this transformation. This unresolved metaphor reflects on the ongoing process of self-discovery and the fluidity of identity within queer relationships. So the poem uses a space within the brackets, suggests that transformation is not complete. It is a process that is still unfolding, and the reader is left to imagine the possibilities of this ongoing transformation. By examining each stanza through the lens of queer theory, we see how the author of the poem subverts traditional narratives of love and intimacy, offering a nuanced and personal perspective of queer relationships. The poem challenges heteronormative assumptions, dismantles gender binaries, and reveals a hidden narrative of shared vulnerability, exploration, and a continuous process of self discovery. Applying queer theory to the analysis of Dear by Danica Kelly allows for a rich exploration of the poem's themes and imagery. So, by challenging boundaries, embracing fluidity, and questioning societal norms, queer theory offers a compelling framework for interpreting the complexities of identity and relationships depicted in the text.
Examining a work of literature, art, or media through a perspective of LGBTQ plus identities and experiences is the basis of queer criticism. This involves examining the ways in which the work shows, critiques, or reflects typical ideas of gender and sexuality. Queer criticism analyzes literature, art, or media through LGBTQ plus identities and experiences. It examines how these works portray or challenge common beliefs about gender and sexuality. Here are a few essential actions for applying queer critique. 1. Determine any LGBTQ plus themes, characters, or subtext. Search for any narratives, characters, or relationships, even if they are not expressed directly, that touch on LGBTQ plus experiences. Be on the lookout for any subliminal cues, cryptic language, or unclear depictions that might be taken as gay. When applying queer critique, there are some important steps to follow. First, you need to look for any LGBTQ plus themes, characters, or hidden messages in the work. This means finding stories or relationships that relate to LGBTQ plus experiences, even if they are not clearly stated. Also, you need to pay attention to subtle hints, coded words, or unclear images that might suggest queer identities. These steps helps reveal deeper meanings about gender and sexuality in the work. 2. Examine the way LGBTQ plus identities are portrayed. Are LGBTQ plus themes and characters portrayed in a way that is positive, negative, stereotype, or complex? Consider if the work questions or upholds gender and sexuality related societal norms and expectations. Next, it is important to look at how LGBTQ plus identities are shown in the work. Look if the LGBTQ plus themes and characters are presented in positively, negatively, in stereotypes, or in a complex way. Also, you need to consider whether the work challenges or supports society's views on gender and sexuality. This helps understand the impact of the work on LGBTQ plus identities. Number 3, examine other interpretations and readings. Look for ways to view the work from a non-heteronormative perspective or how it can be queered. Take into consideration how a queer perspective modifies the work's value or meaning. Another important step in queer critique is to explore different interpretations of the work. Critics should look for ways to view it from a non-heteronormative perspective or how it can be queered. It is also essential to consider how this queer viewpoint changes the work's value or meaning. This analysis can reveal new insights and deeper our understanding of the piece. Number 4, analyze how one identity intersects with others. Be aware of the intersections between LGBTQ plus identities and other social categories such as disability, race, and class. Examine how LGBTQ people from various backgrounds are portrayed or addressed in the work. The next step in Queer Critic is to analyze how LGBTQ plus identities intersect with other social categories like disability, race, and class. Critics should pay attention to how people from different backgrounds are portrayed or represented in the work. This helps highlight the diverse experiences of LGBTQ plus individuals and shows how these identities influence each other. Number 5, the last one, examine the work strategy for representing LGBTQ plus people. Evaluate whether the way LGBTQ plus identities are portrayed in the work is progressive, regressive, or problematic. Consider how the work might be enhanced to provide more inclusive, empowering, or realistic representations. The last step in Queer Critic is to look at how the work shows LGBTQ plus people. You should look if these portrayals are progressive, regressive, or problematic. It is also important to think about how the work could be better by providing more inclusive, empowering, or realistic views of LGBTQ plus identities. This helps highlight ways to improve representation. Finding hidden meanings, questioning existing narratives, and elevating the voices and experiences of LGBTQ plus people in cultural works are the objectives of queer criticism. We may comprehend the complexity of gender, sexuality, and identity in the arts and media on a deeper level by using this critical perspective. The goal of queer criticism is to find hidden meanings, challenge existing stories, and highlight the voices and experiences of LGBTQ plus people in cultural works. By using this approach, we can gain a deeper understanding of the complexities of gender, sexuality, and identity in art and media.